Well, hello everyone, and now that it's only 3 days after Halloween, I thought I would give you a look at not one, not two, but three elevated horror films I've been looking at to help commemorate the season. So here is a video on how I watched the entire X Trilogy in 2024, featuring Pearl and Maxine as well, with all three films being directed by Ty West and starring Mia Goth as the female lead. And whether you want to watch these in chronological or release orders for you to decide. In my case, I watched them in chronological order, so I'm going to be discussing them as such in this review. So let's get started. Turns out both Pearl and X were actually filmed back to back at the same time. It's released different parts of the year. So Pearl follows the title character set in the year 1918 during the Spanish flu and World War I raging, and where it definitely starts off where the X bloodline is chronologically. I also really enjoy how it's shot in the style of the old fashioned and classic films, and it has been noted in many ways something of a reversal of the dynamics in Wizard of Oz, whereas as Dorothy is ultimately, despite her lot in life, ultimately sees the best in the situation she's in, and her journey is one of both personal growth and fantastic wonder. Her Pearl's journey is one towards becoming the villain of her own story, and while her while her parental figures, there's Henry and M, and while not her actual parents, definitely did generally care for her like they were on their own. I mean, here, her parents are a dying elderly man and a devout German farmer who tries to keep herself the best he can, especially given the circumstances. And one thing I'm going to be making quite apparent as I continue to talk about these movies is the recurring themes in all three, especially how cinematic parallels and music play a role in each story, and how definitely finds ways to subvert expectations about the usual roles. I mean, again, while Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz was the first and arguably the closest companion and that Dorothy had, hence why she said to him, "I'll miss you most of all." Well, the one here is an ordinary Scarecrow who, how do I put this, really helps the film earn its R rating, so to speak. And also the kill scenes with the farm animals who end up getting fed to a gator in the bayou who by the farm is actually used a similar recipe they would have used in that time period when depicting blood. I mean, the exact kinds of corn syrup and food coloring they used to make it pop on the screen. And also becomes apparent that she's not really the Dorothy, but rather the Wicked Witch, or at the very least her counterpart in Kansas, Mrs. Gulch, even riding her bicycle and wearing a similar outfit, and so the music, and that's what I appreciate about West as a filmmaker. He clearly understands the concept of film as I do, and as I also point out, also has an eye for upcoming talents. Especially like David Cornsweet's role as the projectionist of the local theater, and I definitely can have all the confidence in him being in the DCU's who's variant of Superman, especially going forward. And even though it closes on rather ambiguous notes with its last shots, and even like the credits were even framed some other way, towards it appears as it came out, so which I'll be getting into with the next couple installments, of course. Next up in the chronology is X, which sees he's the character of Maxine Minx, also playing Mia Goth, uh, filming an adult movie in Texas in the 1979. And even though each of these flicks are definitely set in different parts of U.S. history because of everything that was happening at the time, they were actually all filmed in New Zealand, which, on top of being a very great place to film a lot of stuff, also handled everything quite well, hell, given the situation. And also hopes that horror is definitely a genre that adapted quite well to the changing cinematic climate and managed to make effective use of most of the modest budget and keeping it to a few cast and locations as well, especially. Indeed. On top of Goth performing quite well as Maxine, which will become apparent next one as well. She also reprises her role as Pearl the Elder, and it was a different actor playing her husband Howard. It's definitely an interesting reversal of the dynamics in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, especially the early ones. I could actually make the case that this actually makes a better update to that franchise than the actual one that came out that same year, which was not well received, and I certainly don't really like to talk about it that much. I mean, not just in terms of like the horror and the practical effects, the whole very grainy kind of cinematography and editing, but also the dark, the humorous elements that are occurring throughout the franchise. My personal favorite installment is probably the second one they had in the 80s, which a lot of memorable scenes, lines, and characters. And I also especially like a lot of the music they implemented here. Not just the score, but also how they made use of all the classic rock and funk songs of that time frame. I'll definitely will have to go online, look up all the ones I use on here, and make a playlist of them myself. I mean, since I especially like how I won't go into the circumstances why, but Maxine ends up becoming the final girl. And definitely in the circumstances, I think the case can be made that given how a lot of the other castmates and crewmates were getting picked off one by one, that, yeah, I think there was grounds for self-defense here. And also, how effectively closed out the title, where X was actually the rating it would have had in that time frame, and which was that time period equivalent to NC-17, even though the copy I got access to by Monsters is very hard R on the violence alone, which brings me to the third and final installment of the trilogy, which released earlier this year. Lastly, we have this year's MAXXXINE, and as Maxine in the year 1985 is making transition from her work in adult film to doing straight up horror, or even starring in a sequel to an in-universe Exodus update. It's right in the midst of both the decade's infamous religious panic, as well as a mysterious killer known as the Night Stalker, her picking off people one by one in Los Angeles. I mean, it's definitely one I enjoy how it kept me guessing from its first frame to its final act. Reminds me a lot of Michael Mann's early works that time period, especially his attempt at a Hannibal adaptation, Manhunter, which I still not seen yet, but I've heard very good things about. I mean, the synth soundtrack definitely has a lot of otherworldly as well as nostalgic elements towards it at this point in pop culture history. Especially like how they make use of songs like Laura Branigan's Self Control and, fittingly, a nightclub scene, Frankie's Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, which is a song that definitely seems tailor made for that scene and time period. Definitely had influence on on Midway, given it named a term in Smash TV as well as its unofficial sequel, Total Carnage. Both games I have a soft spot for, admittedly. And also, oh, definitely, all three films also help, like, with the genre it sells at, like holding like a mirror up to society, showing that there are parallels you might not expect. To mean that both the the stars of these uber violent horror films and the religious extremists decrying them have a lot more in common than what you might think. I won't say exactly why, but once you watch this movie, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. How it's and even my love for other movies I've seen this year, I legitimately think this one has potential to be favorite of 2024. I know we still have a couple months left in the year, but it's honestly not going to surprise me if that's not being the case. This movie and this whole trilogy, I still think just really are that good. If you're looking for or insightful horror, but also not skimp on the sheer gore and thrills and kills, these are definitely right up your alley. I guess if I say that much. So both Goth and West are done with this trilogy now. They have expressed openness to working together, rather in the future, and I'm very eager to see what they come up with next and where they can, what they can do. Since even this current state of affairs, here's and this cinematic landscape, there's still creativity and 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 insight in this business if you're looking to find it. And now that I've done this these movies, I definitely have a solid idea what I'm going to be doing for the remainder of this month and what I'm going to be doing on Halloween night as well. That'll be all for now, and I'll see you all again very soon. So, take care, everyone.